Our friends at Photo Central are celebrating the life of a father and of a visionary this month. Dick Toews, father of Photo Central's Andrew Toews and the original owner of the business, passed away earlier this month at the age of 85. It was Dick's love of classical music that has made Photo Central such a beloved and integral part of the Classic 107 family. And his son Andrew joins us in the Classic 107 studios to tell us more about him and to share a bit more about his legacy. Great to see you, Andrew.
Thank you. Good to be here.
First of all, we're very, very sorry for your and your family's loss and the loss of the business as well. Before I mentioned the classical music connection there, before we get to that, maybe you can tell us a bit about how your father came into the photo business in the first place.
Yeah, absolutely. So he, shortly after getting married back in the 60s, he left, or my mother and he left to go spend time in Mexico and taught there. And he ran a radio station there as well in a small town called Cuauhtemoc. And but the funding only lasts so long. So after 5 years, they came back, and he was looking for work. And he always had a love of photography. He had a love of images and all kinds. And he talks about, still talks about getting his first camera when growing up on the farm and making a tiny little darkroom. And so that translated into getting a job back in the day when every store had a photo department. And he was at Sears for a while in their photo department when Independent Photo, the owner of Independent Photo, came and offered him a spot. I guess his reputation was starting to grow, and they offered him a spot at this tiny little counter in Independent Jewelers. And he accepted, and that was in 1975. And under him, it just began to grow and grow and grow and grow. And he became a very prominent member in the community. And by the time we got to the jeweler's decision and to go through a generational change in their business, they didn't really know what to do with this photo department, which had become so large. And they offered him the opportunity to purchase it, which he did. And that was in 1991. And it just grew from there.
It's amazing to think about growing up on the farm. I think outside of Kane,
Manitoba. There's still a sign there. I don't think the town truly exists.
What? I think that there's a co-op gas station out there and a few houses, but
the elevators are still there.
The elevators are still up.
Yep.
Yeah, absolutely. But it's amazing to think about that, all the experience that you just talked about, and where a passion for photography might have come from. Did your dad ever talk about where that sort of first love of photography came from?
I think it was just in having the opportunity. There wasn't a lot to do. And his family also owned the general store in Kane. And he never took to farming. And so, of course, being a kid of a hardworking family, he had to put in his time somewhere, so he helped out in the general store. And they were able to, one of the things they sold were photographic supplies and cameras, as they were back then. And I think that would have been his first contact with the equipment, and he fell in love with it. He needed to know how to use it to be able to sell it. And he talks about getting his first camera and being able to take those first few images. And there were some family pictures too. He's always was very interested in the family history. And so there were some family pictures in their archives, and he delighted in those. So he naturally wanted to be able to keep the tradition going in the family.
So you mentioned purchasing the business in the early 1990s.
1991, right in the recession. Yep.
Wow. When you were coming up, and this was the business was becoming a part of your family's life in a big way, what struck you about the store in those early years that maybe you still see as a quality that if folks come to visit you at your location today, they still see that today?
So anyone who knew my dad they know him because his love for people and his love for camaraderie and fellowship, and that is really what made our store different and still does. Yeah. We love taking time with people, and that is something, as I visited the store when I was a child. I'd always see him people were just talking. People were just in the store. They were talking. They would spend time there. They would have a coffee. There were places to sit. And he delighted in that, building those relationships. And there's a lot of prominent relationships in his life and then in mine that came through that store. And that is something that I wanted to continue as I started to work there, and then after I purchased it, I wanted to make sure that continued because it's what set us apart. Right? Anybody can sell a box, anybody can sell a thing, but it was the relationships that made it really enjoyable to be there.
Absolutely, still a huge part of when somebody walks into Photo Central to this day, that you feel that care. I think about the holiday season when you can come in, grab a cup of hot chocolate or whatever as you're perusing.
Absolutely.
That sort of touch, it's such an amazing familial touch, and it's amazing to hear where that comes from. I imagine you've heard quite a lot of stories in the last little while about your dad and the impact that he had on the community through that business. What are maybe some of the things that you've heard over the last number of weeks about a way that your father has impacted the world around him?
Yeah, I think there's the common denominator in all of them is the time he took with people, and whether it was somebody who was prominent in business, or whether it was somebody coming in off the street who needed money for lunch, and everyone in between. He never differentiated between people, and again, something that I've always tried to maintain in our business too. Whether you're somebody who can only look, or whether you have a large purchase order in hand, that's something that has always driven our business. And those are the relationships he had that I keep hearing again and again. The time he took to teach, the time he took to help, going out of his way to make sure somebody had what they needed, especially if they were at a wedding and had an accident with their camera or what have you, and needed something fast. He was there. It's easier to solve problems these days with all the communication we have. Back in the 70s, 80s, early 90s, people were stuck if they ran into a problem. It was very hard to get something quickly, and he made a point of always trying to take care of people that way, but also just offering time. That's something. And just a listening ear and a caring heart. It's something that he and I both really enjoy about our what we do, and that the conversations that we have that have nothing to do with photography, whether it is just somebody who has lost somebody, or somebody who needs life advice, whether that's customer or staff, those kinds of things are what make the store and at our time they're valuable.
In addition to being such a people person, your dad also had this passion for classical music, which is this incredible bond that we now get to share here on the airwaves. Where did that passion come from?
As far as I know, it was just what he listened to from day one. I mean, he loved well-crafted things. He was meticulous in everything he did. His hobbies reflected that, and I think he appreciated classical music for that. Just the pure beauty of classical music. And growing up, never heard him listen to anything else. In his later years, he was willing to, consider some other things. A little bit of blues made it in there.
All right.
Certainly jazz. We had some fun. I mean, at his service, we're going to be playing some Ella Fitzgerald and that kind of stuff. But ultimately, it was his love of classical music and just the beauty of it. And some of my closest memories with him was just sitting down to listen to music. And just to share one is every Good Friday we sit down and listen to Berlioz Requiem. And
wow,
it's something that's always been close to us. And whether we were able to do it together or apart, we did it knowing the other one would be, and that'll be something that carries on. What
an amazing, impeccable taste, first of all. Do you know why the Berlioz Requiem would be a part of of your dad's listening experience?
I think Berlioz in general, because another one of his favorite pieces was Symphonie Fantastique. I think Berlioz in general just really appealed to some emotions that he wasn't always willing to express otherwise. He was fairly predictable in how he went about his days, and there are emotions in Berlioz. If anyone who knows Berlioz would understand this, that go a little bit deeper, a little bit more raw, and those were emotions, especially in his earlier days, that he would have been completely unwilling to express.
Wow!
Again, as he grew older, that some of those barriers came down. But I think it gave him a moment of introspection and emotional connection that he didn't always allow himself.
Wow. You mentioned the celebration for your dad's life still to come, but In memory of your dad, I understand that people are able to make donations in his memory to Rossbrook House, an organization very dear to his heart. It sounds like maybe you can tell us a bit more about that organization and why it was so special to him.
Yeah, so just picking up on the theme of this interview, we came in contact with a couple of people, a couple of the nuns who worked at Rossbrook House as customers. There was one lady in particular who just loved photography, and of course Rossbrook operates on a shoestring budget. They do so much with so little, and they're just fantastic people. And we just recognized a need there and got to know Sister Margaret very, very well, and just delighted in her company. She was a wonderful person. And so that relationship grew, and the relationship with Rossbrook grew. And so from that point forward, we've always made a point of trying to help there wherever we can, and steer people there, because so few people have even heard of what they do. But it's just an amazing, passionate ministry.
We'll link to that donation page at our website a little bit later on this morning, classic107.com, along with a remembrance of our own of Dick Toews, the father of Photo Central's Andrew Toews, who has been joining us here this morning in the Classic 107 studios. Andrew, our thoughts are with you and your family and the community around Photo Central these past few weeks, and will continue to be so coming up, as well as you continue to remember your dad. Thank you so much for telling us about him here on Morning Light.
Thank you for having me.